Morning. I'd like to call the Nicollet County Board meeting for March 26th to order. And we would like to have the flag pledge led by John Lipke today.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item of business is the approval of the agenda. Do we have any changes?
No, Mr. Chair, no changes, just some additional information in your blue folder for some of the agenda items.
I'll move it. Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion unanimous. By the looks of our gallery, we do not have any induction or introduction of new employees today.
Correct.
Alrighty. Next item on your agenda is the consent agenda. I'd entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion.
Second.
Randall seconds. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion's passed unanimously. We have now on our agenda public appearances. Do we have anybody that has any items? Doesn't appear that we have a throng of visitors today. So, thank you. Property services. Guess who's up? Good morning, Mandy.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Just have one item for your approval. It is for applicant Gordian Energy Systems and property owners Joel and Annika enter to establish a 1 megawatt large solar energy system in Nicollet Township. The property is zoned agricultural. They will be ground mounted panels with a fixed tilt of 30 degrees. And this is part of Xcel Energy's overall community garden system, which we do have 3 other located within the county at this time. There was one individual who did appear at the meeting that day, and he is a neighboring landowner, Lloyd Hoffman. He was just there to listen. He didn't oppose the request, but he was interested in what the actual request was. After due consideration, the commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of the request, and today I'm asking for approval of the conditional use permit and the findings of fact document.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
We have a motion.
I'll second. And
We have a second. And discussion?
Lloyd Hoffman did talk to me also, and is concerned with his TV and cell phone services interrupted. Is there any remedy for him if there is a problem with that?
When a Gordian Energy representative responded to his request, they said they didn't have enough information to say that the solar panels would impact his TV reception. They said they've done extensive studies on stray voltage, and they were comfortable with not having any issues with stray voltage.
So basically he'd have to hire an attorney if his service did go bad?
I don't know that at this
Okay.
time. We have not received any complaints from other solar
Which is a good
sites
sign.
that there has been impacts to the TV reception based on just general TV.
And he was very polite and constructive
Right,
in his
right.
questions.
He very was.
That's good, thank you.
Do we have any other questions?
Mr. Chair, thank you. Mandy, good morning. Do we see this as a growing need or a growing enterprise in our county?
I did want to mention that afterwards. This will be our first one for the year. We've met with 3 other potential sites. What we've been told is that the federal tax credits are expiring at the end of this year, and we could anticipate to seeing up to maybe 10 projects this year at the time right now. So we know for sure 3 are in the works. There could be others that we just haven't been contacted for yet.
And if I could, would they be larger than this or similar sized, or do you know?
They'll be the 1 megawatt size to meet the community garden system. And typically what they'll do is when they start looking for locations, they're going to look for the substation first. So you'll
That
notice,
was going to be my next
along
question.
County Road 25, we have 3 of them right there. And that's why they have that, they have the 5 megawatt system, which is right off of County Road 12. But then our other small 1 megawatts are all within that close proximity to the substation on County Road 25. So that's going to be the first location, is looking for that substation. And then they'll branch out for willing landowners.
Is there potential for need of improved distribution, or I should say reverse distribution, to meet the criteria and the footprint of some of these sites, or are we gonna see them pretty much the capacity close to the substations without incurring additional cost? And that will probably be it.
Right,
Is
they're
that
gonna
a
look for the
reasonable
substation
idea?
site first. And we'll see what happens next year with the tax credits. If anything
Right.
comes out, that could change some of the ways they look at siting them.
So, question, Mr. Chair. 1 megawatt, do you know how many acres that is?
This one is approximately 8 acres,
Okay.
but they run between about 5 to 8 acres depending on how they lay them out.
I just got that one by, was it Rangsdorf?
Mhm.
That looks bigger than that, but it's,
That actually has 3 projects on there. There's a 5 megawatt and then 2 1 megawatt projects.
and the 5 megawatt doesn't get the tax credit or doesn't get as much of it, or?
That's been operating for a couple of years already,
Okay.
so that's established and considered existing.
Okay.
And so I'm sure there were some type of tax credits at the time, but we
Right.
weren't informed of what they are.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Hearing that, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, hearing none, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Anything else for us, Manny?
No, I don't.
Thank you so much. We seem to be racing through this. Madam County Attorney, you're up.
I would defer to Ms. Peterson, who would come before the board and ask for a proclamation by the board.
Ms. Peterson. We've seen you twice already this year.
Yes. Good morning, Mr.
morning.
Chair, Commissioners. April 7th through the 13th, 2019 is National Crime Victims' Rights Week. And last year, the board issued a proclamation for National Crime Victims' Rights Week, and I am requesting that the board, again this year, issue a proclamation. I did send the proclamation. It's included with the packet, but I would like to read it for you now, if that's all right.
I'm going to ask you to, if you would.
Okay. Whereas, in 1982, the President's Task Force on Victims of Crime envisioned a national commitment to a more equitable and supportive response to victims. Whereas, this commemorative week celebrates the energy, perseverance, and commitment that launched the victims' rights movement, inspired its progress, and continues to advance the cause of justice for crime victims. Whereas, crime can leave a lasting impact on any person, regardless of age, national origin, race, creed, religion, gender, sexual orientation, immigration, or economic status. Whereas, incorporating communities, existing experts, and trusted sources of support into efforts to fully serve survivors will develop a criminal justice system response that is truly accessible and appropriate for all victims of crime. Whereas, with the unwavering support of their communities and victim service providers behind them, survivors will be empowered to face their grief, loss, fear, anger, and hope without fear of judgment, and will feel understood, heard, and respected. Whereas, serving victims and rebuilding their trust restores hope to victims and survivors, as well as supports thriving communities. Whereas, engaging a broader array of healthcare providers, community leaders, faith organizations, educators, and businesses can provide new links between victims and services that improve their safety, healing, and access to justice. Whereas, honoring the rights of victims, including the right to be heard and to be treated with fairness, dignity, and respect, and working to meet their needs rebuilds their trust in the criminal justice and social service systems. Whereas, National Crime Victims' Rights Week provides an opportunity to recommit to ensuring that all victims of crime, especially those who are challenging to reach or serve, are afforded culturally and linguistically accessible and appropriate services in the aftermath of crime. And whereas, Nicollet County is hereby dedicated to strengthening victims and survivors in the aftermath of crime, rebuilding resilience in our communities, and our victim responders, and working for a better future for all victims and survivors. Now I, therefore, as Chairman of the Board of Commissioners of Nicollet County, do hereby proclaim the week of April 7th through the 13th, 2019 as Crime Victims' Rights Week, and reaffirm this county's commitment to continuing a victim service and criminal justice response that assists all victims of crime during Crime Victims' Rights Week and throughout the year, and to express our sincere gratitude and appreciation for those community members, victim service providers, and criminal justice professionals who are committed to improving our response to all victims of crime so that they may find relevant assistance, support, justice, and peace.
Thank you very much. Do we have a motion to authorize?
I'll move it.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Any other questions?
Thank you for your work.
Thank
Well,
you.
it's very interesting, Mr. Chair, when you look at these Marjorie Stone parents who now are some children who are committing suicide after what they went through. How do we address those types of situations?
I think in those situations, we just want to make sure that victims and their families have the supports. We can get them referrals to resources to help them through their grief and their pain, and hopefully they're able to take advantage of the resources and referrals that we're able to get them.
Anything else? Anything else you'd like to share? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you. Motion passes. Thank you for your work, Madam County Attorney.
I just wanted to let the board know it was last week or the week before, I've lost track. There were about 4 or 5 presentations that happened in North Mankato. And I think probably a total of over 40-ish people attended those various presentations on fraud and scams. And then we have one coming up in St. Peter here the week of the 7th.
Yep, April 10th at 2 p.m. at the community center.
So we're hoping, well, it's out on community education sites, so hopefully a lot of people will take advantage because there's a lot of good discussion, good questions. There's always new scams popping up, so it's just good to have some red flags to be looking for in those items.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Mr.
your
Chair.
time. Anything else? Madam County Attorney, you got anything else you want to share?
I do not.
I think we would like to recess the board meeting and convene the county ditches. Shall we do that?
I'll
Okay.
move the consent agenda.
Oh, well, we're gonna call the ditch authority meeting to order first. Then we have a motion for the consent agenda.
Then have somebody else do it. I thought you'd already done that.
Oh, okay.
I'll move the consent
We
agenda.
have a motion for the
Second.
consent agenda. Anything else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Any other matters before the Drainage Authority Board? Hearing none, I will close, we'll close the board meeting, the Drainage Authority Board meeting. And now we will reconvene the Board of Commissioners meeting. And guess, we're way ahead of the clock here. Do you need a break, Jack?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, all right. We have the administration is up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First item of business is a proclamation and a request for sponsorship for the Women Celebrating Women banquet here in St. Peter. Chris Wursel normally presents this. She was not able to attend this year, so I said I would be happy to bring this forward. Tuesday, April 9th is the Women Celebrating Women banquet at Gustavus in commemoration of National Women's History Month. The theme this year is Visionary Women Champions of Peace and Nonviolence. The event again will recognize a local woman and their contributions to the community. We've had 2 winners here actually in this room. Commissioner Drannell and Attorney Zender Fisher have both won the hardware for this event. Nice, well, it's not even a plaque, it's a sculpture, yeah. So requesting approval of the proclamation, which would designate March as a celebration to the accomplishments of women and Women's History Month in Nicollet County, and then to provide a sponsorship of $220 for the event.
you want that as two separate or one single motion?
It could be one motion.
I'd actually like the proclamation read into the record though, please, if we can.
Okay.
And who would like to do that? Madam County Attorney, would you be willing to do that today?
Certainly.
As a past recipient?
I will do that.
Thank you.
Proclamation. Whereas during Women's History Month, we celebrate the many accomplishments of the women of Nicollet County, and whereas the theme for the 2019 Women's History Month celebration is Visionary Women, Champions of Peace and Nonviolence, and whereas the April 9th, 2019 Women Celebrating Women event will recognize a local woman who has persisted in being a champion of peace, nonviolence. Now therefore be it resolved that the month of March be designated to celebrate the accomplishments of all women. Be it further resolved that the Nicollet County Board of Commissioners proclaim March 2019 as Women's History Month in Nicollet County. Signed by Denny Kemp, Chair, Nicollet County Board of Commissioners.
Hearing the proclamation, and I think I heard a motion to approve that and.
Sure, yes, so moved.
We have a motion.
I'll second that.
Yes.
Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you both. And thank both Marie and our county attorney for having stellar performers to be recognized in their county, and well done.
And Mr. Chair, if I could.
Madam.
An interesting fact is that there's a national recognition that takes place, I believe it's this weekend in Washington, D.C., and Sister Alice, who I don't have her last name in front of me, from...
Chalmers.
Pardon?
Chalmers?
No. Sister Alice from School Sisters of Notre Dame is actually in Mankato, is being recognized and receiving recognition this weekend in Washington, D.C. for her work. So we have not only local recognition, but we have national recognition in our community as well.
Outstanding. Thank you very much for that. Did you just get the Alice Chalmers reference? Okay. Thank you for that. Mr. Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Moving on here, transportation funding resolution. On Friday, March 15th, the AMC Board of Directors approved a 2019 transportation funding resolution for all counties to consider. The resolution is attached along with a presentation put together by the County Engineers Association from the AMC Transportation Working Group for your reference. The resolution encourages the Minnesota legislature to pass and the governor to sign a bill that brings adequate funding to Minnesota's statewide transportation system. The AMC's hopes is that all 87 counties will adopt this resolution. Mr. Chair, I'd like to turn the floor over to Commissioner Kolarz if you have anything to add. I know Commissioner Kolarz is, of course, on the AMC board and on the transportation committees, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ryan. We have an opportunity to talk about this at AMC Transportation Committee and at the working group since the beginning of the year. And as you know, here in District 7, AMC transportation funding has risen to the top over the last 3 years as needed action from the state legislature. I believe that this resolution is general in scope but specific in nature to encourage needed county funding for transportation. And I know that we got some answers from Seth last week. We have 300 miles that we own here in Nicollet County. We're already seeing some of our neighbors who have approved and passed this resolution along to AMC's Julie Ring, who will share it with Emily Pugh in our Transportation Committee working. So I would encourage our support of this and would be willing to answer any questions.
Do you have any questions?
I'll move the resolution.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We're back to Administrative Fresh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item is to have a discussion on a couple expansion projects, office expansion projects that we have potentially slated for this year. The first one, and there's information in your blue folders regarding specific details regarding both projects and the floor plans. The first one, Health and Human Services expansion space. This would construct office space on the second floor of our Health and Human Service building above the garage that we built for expansion purposes. This was included in the 2019 budget. What I'm going to be requesting here shortly is an additional appropriation from the Human Services reserves to complete the project, because the project scope has expanded, and I'll get into more detail on that here in a minute. The other project is an expansion of our technologies office. With the demand for technology increasing each year, the need for additional office space for our technology department has increased. Expanding the technologies office into the 1880s basement was approved in the 5-year capital improvement plan. It was not part of the discussion items of our 2019 budget, however. There is currently money in the 2019 budget to complete this project, and I'll get into more of that here in a minute. Referring to the handouts you have, the first sheet, which explains the budgeted costs. On the Health and Human Service space, originally we budgeted $125,000, and this was last July when we came up with that number. I based that, it cost us $117,000 to build the space in the basement of the HHS building for the Department of Human Services lease that we have. We didn't really know at that time what we needed, wanted, or what types of improvements we should be doing in expansion space, so we just put a placeholder in the budget of $125,000 of human service reserves to be used this year. In developing this project, we're proposing that we create 3 offices in our existing second floor office space, and this really has to do with federal requirements for CD workers, that they have to have basically 2 layers of locks protecting their data, and that's a federal requirement. When we originally built the building, we had 1 CD worker, and I believe we have 3 people doing CD work now. So we need additional locked office space that we didn't originally plan for. Also in the second floor area, we would be adding card accesses to make the whole second floor office space secure. We didn't do that in the original design of the building. In hindsight, we probably should have. So what this amounts to is really putting in 1 more door and 2 more card readers in our existing office space. On the expansion area, which is a little over 3,200 square feet, we originally projected we'd need about half of that space. What we're proposing is that we build offices, 4 offices and 10 cubicles, and I believe the plan is to move the adult mental health unit into that area. This would still leave us with 4 empty spaces and then all their vacated spaces across the hall, which we could then have public health grow into as well. Again, the need for the offices, our positions, all our supervisors have offices. Also, we have investigators doing adults protection investigations that need confidentiality as well, so we have a need for additional office space. And then the cubes, again, we're proposing those as the staff that would be going in there currently does have cubes. A part that I left out of the budget that is an expensive piece is furniture for 14 offices and cubes. I estimate that to be about $84,000. And we also have added an additional conference room to the space. We use our conference rooms across the whole campus very regularly, and so we think it's a good investment, and if we're doing this construction, it'd be a good time to do that now. And then we aren't, as shown on the floor plan on the following page here, we're not using that entire space with this construction, but in talking to our construction managers and architects, they're proposing that we just go ahead and finish the ceiling, the HVAC, the flooring, all at one shot rather than piecemeal it. They think we're money ahead by doing that all in one project, and you run the risk in the future if you piecemeal it not being able to get matching carpets and ceiling tiles and all those types of things. So
just as a question while we're going through this, so the area that's marked on that expansion space, that's the 256,
Yep.
is actually just gonna be the finish out space, but nothing else?
it'll be open.
Right,
Still.
okay.
Potentially, as we advance our telecommuting, teleworker program, that potentially could be a landing area.
Right, so that might be some stand-up workstations
Right,
ultimately,
or just
something else.
shared space that people could use.
Okay.
How would we pay for this? So this, I'm proposing that we go from a budget of $125,000 to $300,000. It would all be used using human services reserves. Year-end human service reserves were at 5.8 million. Estimating year-end 2018, we're estimating that we're gonna gain or add to our reserves by 900,000 in human services. And then, part of, this space, how we handle this, anytime we have human service space, the county, leases the space to human services. Human services pays us, so it's money in, money out, but then we're able to, recapture our indirect cost plan, federal reimbursement, doing it that way. So we'll be able to capture some additional, rents and indirect cost plan reallocation funds. On the technology space, again, we hadn't discussed this with the budget. Dale and I discussed late last year the growing need for more space, and then talking to our construction manager and architects, they felt that if we did this project in conjunction with the Health and Human Service space, we'd use the same contractors and that type of thing. We'd probably get better bids and quotes, and make it more affordable. So I'm proposing that we budget $50,000 for the cost of this space, and you can see the floor plan here on the last page. It's in the 1880s portion of the courthouse, or the area we refer to here as the dungeon. The first two rooms as you walk in, both on the left and right side, currently where the training room is on the left, and there's just old equipment on the right. We would finish those spaces off with drywall, ceiling tiles, HVAC, and we would actually convert those to office space areas. The concept of a training room for technology has changed dramatically. We don't really need the fixed station training room like we used to. We're able to do most of it web-based, or bring laptops into the Minnesota River rooms and do it all in different locations. So we're proposing to make better use of that space and put offices in there. Again, that money, we do have about $370,000 in our budget of budgeted contingency funds for when things like this come up. So I'm proposing that we would just reallocate $50,000 of that for this project.
What about furnishing in this particular mode? Do we have the resources now?
So,
Or are we gonna have some bolt-ons there too?
$45,000 of the cost is just to finish it, and Dale thinks he's got enough existing office furniture, and that we've got spare pieces here and there in both our buildings in the basements. He thinks he can put most of it together with existing, so we put $5,000 in just for some additional pieces that we may need.
Okay.
Question, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Collard?
On the Health and Human Services reserves, how do we gain $900,000 in a year? Can you walk me through how that works?
Mhm. I'm going off memory here. I believe we took in about, I'll be round numbers here, 200,000 of additional revenue that we didn't anticipate. and then we didn't spend, or we underspent our budget by about 700,000. So that's, I'm using round numbers, but that's how we came to that increase.
Okay, and do you see that growing at that rate on an annual basis, or?
No, I haven't looked at the out-of-home placement numbers for 18, so my guess is we maybe underspent that part of our budget. So that could be part of the expense piece. The revenue piece, I do see that piece growing. The board approved hiring a consultant to help us with that. So I do anticipate that growing, and as that number grows, we'll be able to better gauge what we need for levy each year. We plan to completely, I'll say, redo our health and human service budget from how we've done it in the past, and so there's gonna be a lot of changes there to maybe tighten that budget up, so we have more accurate numbers in it, but it's better than being 900,000 short, I guess, which on a really bad placement year could happen.
I think the other thing too is in this last year, we also had a significant savings with our change in providing mental health services with our departure from Sioux Trails. And I think partway through the year, we were also given notice of the fact that we were even underspending what we originally contracted for. So there was a considerable, best recollection, probably another 200K there.
Yeah, you're correct, Commissioner Kemp. I believe the Sioux Trails cost was in the 2018 budget.
Right.
We made the change in 18 and saved significant funds, so that's probably 200,000 of it right there.
It's amazing to see how that brand new building is filling up, and that's a comment, I suppose, about the needs at Health and Human Services. On the dungeon space, so-called, when that renovation, will there be storage of, and maybe you know better, Denny, about IT materials, but will those materials that'll be in there, would that be safe from water and all the other stuff that?
Safe as anything on the campus, we haven't had any issues with that.
Yeah,
And those are not the server rooms.
Right.
This is occupation space.
Yep.
This is people having workspace and doing, correct me if I'm wrong, is you have a spot finally you can light tap, is that?
But the server rooms are down off of the IT space, right?
Correct, they're completely separated, so.
Right, okay.
Yep.
So we do different HVAC and other components for that, so it's a much more isolated space.
To your first point, Commissioner Kolar's on the growth of Health and Human Services, yes, we've added 11 positions there in the last 3 years, which is a lot for us, but it's not uncommon from when I talk to my counterparts. They're growing in those areas as well. That's part of the reason we have started a telecommuting, teleworking program. We're piloting right now. We have 4 staff doing that, and we plan to continue to ramp that up. I don't want to fill this building if I can all help it, and we are completely full in North Mankato. We can't really add another body there, so and I don't think that's an ideal location to ever expand or add on to. So, but I do think with the teleworking, telecommuting program, many counties have done that, and it's worked well, and it saves on space. So hopefully this will accommodate our needs for a very long time.
And if I may, that also goes back to our discussion at the work session on the issue of having a more robust software plan so that our staff is more versatile and more mobile. And I think that was part of the step of looking at that next generation of software to do a lot of that records management in a way that makes it more approachable for our staff also and keeps them out in the field.
Right.
So,
Mr. Chair, those positions we've added in the last 3 years, they're virtually all state and federal requirements that we're complying with.
I would say it's mainly driven by caseload.
okay.
Some of it has to do with state and federal programs, how they're implemented. MNsure, forgetting the other one that we've had to with the case management side of things. We've increased several staff. Child protection, we were mandated to increase a couple positions there 2 or 3 years ago. And yeah, most of them are based on caseload or federal requirements or changes to federal and state systems. The METS program is another one that's new and has added work on our income maintenance side. And so yeah, some of it's out of our, well, all of it's out of our control to some extent.
Mr. Chair, I think, didn't we add adult protection workers as well?
Yes.
We're seeing that caseload increase as well.
And we are going to, we definitely need to add child protection workers. I wouldn't doubt if we're gonna have to add 2 of those very soon, based on caseload again. So, yeah, unfortunately, I guess you could say that area is growing, and part of our strategic planning session we have at the end of the month with Health and Human Services, I'd like to have part of that discussion be possibility of looking at preventative services, more preventative services, to maybe try to curb some of these growing caseloads. But of course, with that, takes an upfront investment as well, so.
Anything else? I think we could entertain a motion. Do you want to keep these separate, or do you want to, because we're allotting separate dollars, shall we do those separately? Is that all right?
Sure.
All right. First discussion item then, and I'd entertain a motion on the HHS
I'll
expansion.
move it, Mr. Chair.
We have a motion?
Second.
We have a second. Any other additional discussion or questions? This is merely the HHS expansion question. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. I'd entertain a motion to address the technology space expansion.
So moved.
We have a motion.
I'll second that.
We have a second. Any other additional questions?
You know, there's some unusual architecture features down there that could play in to make that a pretty cool space.
Yeah, we looked at that.
There's some
Yeah.
windows down there, isn't there?
Yeah, the windows will stay.
Sorry, you people work like moles down in the current space. You know, a window might be nice.
James, you're buried in the HHS vault. You are. No one can find you. It's
It's nice to see you in the light of day, Jay.
In the 1880s basement, it's got a foundation of limestone block. The issue there is when it was re-tuck pointed, I think after the tornado, it was done not in a aesthetically appealing way.
Oh, slap the cement in other words.
Yeah,
Sure.
which is kind of unfortunate because that would really have made for a nice architectural feature.
Yeah.
We looked at it and said, well, is it still okay? But we are going to cover up those areas.
Probably drywall it.
We might still have some exposure around the windows, just so people know it's there. But yeah, we did a massive cleaning of the 1880s basements. It's like every basement, it fills up, and it was really full. I don't know how many times we had to get dumpsters last year, but we made a dent.
Okay.
Question, Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Lipke.
So where the servers are, you keep that cooler?
Yes, those are completely, they're data center grade rooms, so we have one in the HHS building, one in the courthouse, and they're all time controlled, fire suppression system, they're monitoring for humidity, temperature.
Okay, I mean, like, are they 50 degrees or 60 degrees?
We can about low 60s. So.
Okay. That's good.
Anything else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Did you have some more for us, Ryan?
Well, actually, I just got a couple updates on some legislative pieces. If I can
Okay.
find my notes regarding CPA, it sounds like the 30.5 million of additional CPA is still in the governor's budget and still on the table, which is a good sign.
Could I ask you to remind everybody what CPA actually stands for?
Oh, sure, county program aid. So county program aid is our funds, from the state to, counties. The version that cities get is called local, government aid.
Right.
And it's intended to, help offset property taxes at the local level due to state mandates, is a real simple version of the purpose of it. The issue with county program aid is it has not kept up with inflation, over the, 20 or 30 years it's been in existence. So there's been a push, I guess annually, to have that increased, and there seems to be some support for that now, this year, with Governor Walz especially. So he does have it in his current budget. The impact, if 30.5 million was approved, the impact to Nicollet County would be a $200,000 increase. So not a huge amount of money. 200,000 is roughly equivalent to 1% of our
Say
levy.
about 1% of the levy, right?
So, but it would definitely help. We currently get about 1.5 million of county program aid. If 20 million was approved, it'd be 132,000 of additional, and if 10 million was approved, it'd be 67. So we'll see where it ends up, but things are looking more promising than they have in past years. On the negative side, I've learned yesterday that we get something called para-state aid. In 2008, I believe it was, there was a formula change with PERA. And to offset some of the increased costs to local governments, the state came up with para-state aid to give to cities and counties. That sunsets, I believe, this year or next year, and from AMC's point of view, from what they're hearing, they're thinking that's not going to continue. The impact to us is we get 34,000 a year, so that might be going away, which we see every year. We get a give and take.
And typically that's a push through for our share of the para compensation for the employees, right?
Yeah. Again, it was a formula change, and I believe it was 08, and just to help offset some of the increase.
Because there was a more significant bump at that time.
Yeah. So that might be going away. So just a couple potential budget items that we'll know by the end of May what we have.
Where we are, okay.
That is all for today, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We're on to informational items, and I guess that's me to start. And my report is, I've been going to lots of meetings in the last period of time. So not only our board meeting, but CHS Personnel Committee, our board retreat went well, and I haven't made a full report since then. Our department head meetings and our board workshop went well attended, and lots of information that came up. And that's all I have. Commissioners, Commissioner Kolars, you want to start?
Thank you, Commissioner. CHS Personnel County Board Retreat, or advancement, however we're going to call those in the future. We had our AMC board meeting, as was mentioned earlier, on March 15th, where the board met in St. Paul. And the board workshop on the 19th, TDS on the 21st, and a housing meeting on March 25th. Paula? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Reynolds.
I was also at the board retreat up at Gustavus Friday, whatever Friday that was after that, sorry, I lost my dates. Tri-County Solid Waste meeting, and immediately followed by our meeting with our legislators, planning and zoning on a Monday night, board workshop, department head, conference call, well, Region 9 board meeting, but I conference called it. And yesterday morning, bright and early, we had a law library meeting. I've also been to the recycling dumpsters 5 times in the last 5 weeks, and they're full all the time. So I'm not sure if they're getting
Are
used.
we not getting dumped enough?
We're not
or?
getting dumped. I'm hoping for they're getting used.
Okay.
So, it's my life in a nutshell.
Our Commissioner Drano, which ones that?
I've been up to Public Works and I've been to the one at the city dump site.
And they're both full
Yeah,
regularly?
yeah, that's a good thing, I think. I
Oh,
sent
right.
an
Yeah.
email to Al, it's just now,
You did,
so,
okay.
yeah.
Just as long as they're getting dumped.
Yeah, it was overflowing.
Okay. Commissioner Morrow.
You're up.
As everyone else, board meeting, attended a St. Peter Food Access Network meeting. Retreat as well with Marie, Tri-County Solid Waste, and a meeting with legislators that we all attended. Constituent meetings on the census and some other matters. The work session then yesterday, spent time at the Capitol talking with legislators about some county issues.
Great. Commissioner Lipke.
I went to the retreat at Gustavus with the rest of you, visited with our legislators here in St. Peter, went to the workshop, also met with the sheriff ahead of that. I was invited by the Brown County Veteran Service Officer to go along on their trip to the Capitol. They do service a lot of our people in the western end of the county that don't want to come all the way to St. Peter. And I did run into our guys, Nathan and Jerry, up there. Yesterday, with some information that Ryan gave me, I took a trip to Slayton. I was invited to sit in on the Minnesota Rural Energy Board that we are going to be probably bringing up the possibility of us joining. It is most of the counties south and west of here, or virtually all the counties south and west of here. They deal a lot with energy, a lot of windmills, but also they're into considering solar and safety, electric vehicles, generating stations. I think it'd be a good fit. I'd urge you guys to look at their website and to talk to Will Purvis, who is, you think everybody knows Will, and he is very enthusiastic there. I asked, would this be a good fit for us, and he said, absolutely. And I am going to join the rest of you after this in Gaylord for a ditch meeting.
And a
That's it.
joint
Joint
county
meeting,
meeting too,
yes.
right?
Do we have any meetings and conferences we need to authorize?
Nothing new.
I think we've already
Mr. Chair.
done everything up to date. haven't
For the
we?
leadership thing coming up? or-
Leadership has already been
That's already been
addressed.
Okay.
That should be it.
Anything else? Okay, I'd entertain a motion for per diems and expenses.
So moved.
We have a motion
One second.
from Commissioner Kolars and a second from Commissioner Lidke. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there anything else, Madam County Attorney, do you have anything else?
I do not have anything
Human
today.
Services, would you have anything else?
Human resources.
Or Human Resources, I said Human Services, I apologize.
She's everything.
She does it all. Nancy, have you got anything for us? Nothing, okay.
She's still pregnant.
You know what, well, okay,
When's
We're
that
eagerly-
baby
does
coming?
that,
Yeah, we're waiting for that baby.
all right,
Pretty soon? April.
April 15th.
Tax day.
Good luck.
Maybe you can get one more tax deduction in, huh? Yeah.
I don't think it works that
No,
way.
doesn't it? Okay. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you,
We gotta find
and
a
thank all of you for your
plastic
work.
bag around here.